Hi, I'm Gina Tumbarello. I'm the Senior Director of International Policy and Trade at the American Feed Industry Association. And I work to ensure that our industry has access to international markets, continuing to allow them to be competitive and successful. I will be speaking at AFIA's Pet Food Conference. I will be speaking on what AFIA is doing on behalf of the pet food industry to support export efforts. So I will be talking about some export trends over this past year. We'll talk a little bit about this new administration, which isn't quite new anymore, but how their trade agenda has shifted from the previous administration and that effect on pet food exports, as well as covering some of the more recent challenges and opportunities that we're seeing for pet food exports. I will also be speaking at TikTok about the risk to U.S. animal food exports if the U.S. were to get an outbreak of African swine fever. So what a lot of people don't know is that currently nearly all U.S. animal-based products are exported on a 16-4 health certificate. And so if African swine fever were to come to the United States, this would be a problem because that health certificate states that the U.S. is free of African swine fever. So as it stands, if there is that outbreak, none of these animal-based feed products will be able to be exported. So that's a pretty big issue for our industry, and that's something that is at the forefront of our mind, and as we work with our industry to try and address that challenge. I actually just went through some recent trade numbers. Unfortunately, last year's trade numbers only go through November, but it does give us a pretty good idea of what's happening. One thing that I found was really interesting is U.S. pet food exports to China continue to increase, and we've started seeing this trend when the U.S. and China implemented their phase 1 agreement. And so just in the last year, in taking into consideration we don't have all of last year's data yet, there was a 113% increase in U.S. exports to China, which is pretty significant. But if we look back to when the agreement went into place, between then and now, it's actually 981% increase in U.S. exports to China. So it's not our biggest market yet, but there is a lot of potential there. And the reason why this is so exciting is that's a very large increase, but that's also with new high tariffs that China has put on U.S. pet food. So if there were a situation where we could get those new tariffs removed from U.S. pet food exports to China, I imagine that market would continue to flourish even more than it already is. Honestly, I am just so excited to get on the convention floor and see our industry flourishing with the hustle and bustle of it all.